Good morning. Good to see all of you here today. We appreciate you coming and joining in with the family in this time of grief. I know it means a lot to them. And we are here today to celebrate and honor the life of Iris Elizabeth Morgan Stansel, born April the 29th, 1928, died September the 23rd, 2020. Ms. Stansel was a native of Suwannee County. In fact, she was born and raised just across the road here in front of the church. The daughter of Stanton and Lizzie Morgan. And she loved to come back here when we had our homecomings and gather around with the family because she was a family-oriented person. I want to say just a word about her husband this morning also. Ed served in the military, the Marine Corps, for something around 23 years, having become a lieutenant colonel in the process, and then retired and moved back to the Jacksonville area where they made their home. But Iris was a supportive wife of Ed and joined in with him and traveled with him different places all over the world. So they had a rich life there for a while, even though it might have been trying and difficult in many, many ways. And so we want to honor that service, not only Ed's service, but her service in supporting him. It takes a family to really be successful in those things. Ms. Stansel maintained many interests throughout her life and through the years. She was, as all of you know, I suppose every one of you here today are somewhat closely associated with her or related to her. And you know that she was a family-oriented individual. Some of her favorite things to do was cooking, and there are several dishes that she had were favorites and favorites of others. She loved cooking. She also liked to do landscaping and gardening. She liked to work outside, work in the dirt, and had a green thumb, I understand. And sailing was a passion of hers on the river, sailing on the river, and also fishing. In addition to that, Lizzie loved to travel. And I want to say this morning, I believe above all of this, the greatest thing that can be said about Ms. Stansel is that she loved the Lord, and she was his child. And that makes all the difference in the world when we come to these days. In the latter days of her life, she was unable to attend church, so she worshiped in front of TV, watching the programs on television and singing along, humming along with the hymns that were sung there. So we're here today to honor her life, a good life, and we appreciate the Lord's blessings upon her. Now, at times like this, don't want you to feel put on the spot, but we would like to give you an opportunity. If any of you would like to come forward this morning and say a word about Miss Lizzie, Iris, and welcome to come forward. We'll give you a moment. Wait just a moment if anyone would like to say a word. And don't be afraid, because we all here are human beings and we support each other. Anyone like to say a word?
I'd just like to say that I think all of her nieces and nephews thought that she was the favorite aunt.
Anyone else? That speaks volumes.
They used to love to have the family at their home when Ed was still here, and on the 4th of July, and we'd all go, and they had a nice place to gather and to meet, and a good swimming hole, and creek. You could use any of the boats they had and go down the creek if you wanted to go. And I know I went over a few times, and Ed and I, Junior here, we went caught bass on the creek, come back and clean those fish and eat them right there that night. Yeah.
While they had the home in Jacksonville, there, what you're talking about down around Green Cove Springs.
Right.
Anyone else?
I can attest to her cooking because when we would have a thing like homecoming or anything like that after she got up in age there, and then she was getting a little bit feeble about getting around, I'd say, Iris, you don't need to make anything. There's plenty of food. And I would get there to pick her up, and she would say, well, I have that to take.
Yeah.
Worked the night before and got a
She was
a
gonna
dish
take that.
and baked a cake or something that she couldn't hardly handle the pan for, but she had
Yeah.
made something. She had to make something. And if we went to a family reunion, she had to make something.
That's so true.
Women in her day and in our day, when I say that, our age,
Talk about us old folks
were
now.
oriented toward cooking, and you don't stop that. And these ladies knew how to cook.
And she taught me too.
Still do.
You just got a gift, too. You got a cooking gift.
I wish I'd have listened, paid more attention.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I married into the family in August of 1974, and we went to their home before I think they built their home there in Green Coast Springs, and she just welcomed me, her and Ed did, and Eddie, and we just had such a wonderful time, and I felt, you know, the love all through the years. She loved me, and I loved her, and Ed, and Eddie,
I
and Beth.
understand she was a pretty loving person.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I will. As a child, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother and with my Aunt Iris. One of my favorite stories was them catching a skunk, thinking it was a cat. And the story that went along with that after was all of the bathing that had to happen. Great, I said, cat.
Anyone else?
Well, I can remember both Uncle Ed and Iris. You know, when I was a child, we lived in a subdivision in Lake City, and they would all come, you know, and they had dachshunds at the time. They would always have dachshunds or boxers or some
Good bull.
couple
Yeah.
of dogs, you know. And Eddie was little. He's only just a few years younger than me, but he couldn't say Elizabeth. And so, and he would try so hard. And I mean, he had to be about 2, you know. And Uncle Ed said, just call her E-Buzza Buzza. And so for many years, that's who I was. But I mean, Uncle Ed was a rock, and he just had, you know, and Iris was his helpmeet. And, you know, we all think about him being a great man, and he was. But we think about Iris, you know, she was his stable force, you know. She was behind the scenes, not in front, and was always a great hostess, and, you know, showed hospitality to all of us.
All right, any other?
I think of her now and what she just went through in the last 6 months too, and how trying that was for her. And what a beauty it is today that she's with her family.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Ed's sister. His baby sister, as he always called me. And I can remember when Iris was she always had everything under control. And if you showed up at her house, whether she knew it or not, in a few minutes she could have a cake out of the freezer that she'd had stored away and had. And I'd always leave there thinking, how crazy am I? I can't do that. She just,
Each of us have our unique gifts.
yeah, she did. She was
did.
and the house always looked like she was expecting company all the time. I mean, there was never any. And I'd leave there and I'm thinking, oh no, why didn't some of this wear off of me?
All right, anyone else?
I told this little story Sunday after church, but for a period of time they lived in Hawaii, and they would come always every year and stay at the farm with us. And one year when they came, Aunt Iris brought me a pair of lava rock earrings from Hawaii. Never have I felt more beautiful with a pair of rocks hanging from my hair than I did that. She had that ability to make you feel so special and that you were important.
You were.
I got one more or two more little stories. When they would come to my granddaddy Staten's right across the road there for Christmas, I was a little guy, and I was expecting something great from them because they always gave a nice gift. And I mean, it might have cost $5. But anyway, one year I had 2 presents. from them. And I opened the first one because it was the heaviest. Well, it was a red fire brick. And so I was aggravated, so I tore the other one open, and it was a bundle of switches. So, but then eventually they gave me something nice. I don't remember what that was.
That's my dad.
Switches and a brick. But one thing about Aunt Iris, she had a name that most of us didn't know. But when they were in Hawaii, Ed started school there, and they was asking his parents' names and all of that. And he told her Irish Stansel, but his mother said, well, does she have a